Hello there and welcome along to Hive Live, your place for all of the build-up to today's 12:30 kickoff as Watford will be taking on Liverpool. So we've got lots on the way in the next 45 minutes or so. We'll be taking a look back at a very memorable night, the last time we faced Jurgen Klopp's side right here at Vicarage Road. We'll be looking ahead to our upcoming fixtures against both Everton and Southampton and be hearing from a number of new faces, as well as bringing you some really exciting news about a new show that launches next week. That's all to come today in Hive Live as we count down to the Premier League's lunchtime kickoff as Watford will be taking on Liverpool. Hello once more and welcome along to Hive Live, your matchday home for the Hornets. It's a huge game today at Vicarage Road as Watford will be taking on Liverpool, a fixture of course we all have very fond memories of. I'm joined here live in the studio with all of your build-up. The former Hornet striker Tommy Mooney is with me once more. Hello, how are you?
Very well, good morning.
Do you know, I might need your help a little bit because I think could be struggling for talking points a little bit. It's been a quiet fortnight, hasn't it, this international break?
Not a lot gone on, has there? So no, I'm sure we'll have to pan something out.
Yes, it's quite the opposite, isn't it? A lot has gone on, but a lot of exciting change for the fans to be excited about going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you talk about head coaches in the Premier League, and you know Ranieri is one of those that has had the ultimate success and then been successful wherever he's coached. So I think it's really exciting times for the Watford fans, and I'm sure they're looking forward to today's opener. Yeah,
we're going to be talking about Ranieri in a moment or two, but for you, what have you been up to the last fortnight? I mean, jokes aside, I did wonder if you'd seen the news, because I know how much you like to be out on the golf course, Tommy.
Well, I have been out on the golf course. I represented the Hornets yesterday with two ex-players as well, in Gibbo and Richard Johnson. Gibbo actually finished second in the competition, but as a team, with Andy Showbiz, we finished 8th.
Out of how many, dare I ask?
80.
80?
No, 19.
No, 9.
If I could have made a couple of putts, Gibbo said we could have won it. So I feel like I've let Gibbo down, which you should never do.
No, absolutely not. Moving swiftly on, let's look ahead to today's game. So Claudio Ranieri in the dugout. It still feels a bit weird saying that out loud. I mean, what was your reaction when the appointment was made?
Really positive. I think you go from perhaps the most inexperienced Premier League coach to one of the most experienced coaches around. So I think it's a really positive step. We appreciate what happened last season. This season's a different one, and we've got to move forward. You just look at his stats there. It's an exceptional win percentage across the best leagues in Europe. So we just hope that influence rubs off on the dressing room and the players play for him.
That influence and that experience, I mean, when you look at how many games he has managed across, some 3 decades?
Yeah, it's an awful lot. You know, we talk about Steve Bruce likely to make his 1000th managerial game. Claudio's already made 1300 plus. So that's very, very experienced, and you'd hope that experience, as a player, gives you the tools to deal with whatever happens on the pitch.
Just looking at some of his highlights as a manager, from Cagliari through to Chelsea, and of course that famous title with Leicester City. There's some huge clubs in there, not to mention Napoli, Roma, Inter Milan as well, Valencia. Why is he a good fit for Watford?
I have to say the experience is the main thing for me, but also his personality, the way he comes across. You see it in his interviews previously and in the press that he's done this week. I think his personality comes across. Again, something that the players need. The players need to understand what he wants, how he wants to play, whether that be based on a defensive shape that attacks with the pace of a counter-attack. But I also like the fact that he's confident enough to go in on the training pitch, as we see there. He's doing the coaching, which is a vital thing, because players need to know what the manager wants as soon as possible. You've had 2 weeks, but he hasn't had his players for 2 weeks. So arguably most of his starting 11 today he'll have met only 24 hours ago. So that's going to be a little bit difficult.
Do you think we'll see a little bit of that, maybe, that he's not had a huge amount of time with these players? I suppose the thing to counteract, though, they are all professionals, aren't they? And they will have all experienced this at some stage in their careers. Yeah,
it's normal. Managers come and go, and players have to deal with managers coming and going. So that's not going to be any different, I don't think. For me, the timing of it gives him time to learn about the club. But then he's got to work quickly after today's game with his starting 11 and what he wants. I'm sure there's plenty of people at the club already, playing staff, will know what style of play he has, the way he wants to do things. And I think because he's done what he's done and he has that age and experience, that buys him a little bit of time and respect from everybody around the club.
I suppose the thing is as well, it's not like he needs to reinvent the wheel here. It's been an okay start. We've got some points on the board. I do just wonder though how different we'll look today. What's your hunch? Do you think there'll be a big change in formation, in personnel?
I don't think we'll see what we did at Newcastle, where it was you attack, we'll attack.
Right.
I think it'll be more structured in defence in that way. And you probably had some of those, the characters that'll play today, he will have worked with at the training ground. So I think that'll be the biggest difference. It'll be a structured shape from defence, and then we'll try and counter-attack. But then you're playing against one of the best teams in Europe today. You're not going to get an awful lot of possession, so your counter-attack was always going to be the main talk about. Yeah,
we'll talk about Liverpool specifically in a moment or two, but I suppose the other advantage that comes with Claudio Ranieri is that he knows English football and the Premier League inside out as well. He'll know a lot about Liverpool going into this one.
Yeah, he will, and he's also worked and succeeded at a club like Leicester, where they were the underdog and won the Premier League. So he has managed some of the biggest clubs in Europe, but not only there has he had success. So he's worked with a club similar to Watford before. So I think that helps too. It's not like he's come from Chelsea and gone straight into Watford, where there's obviously a huge difference. I think that will help his journey along the way.
Yeah, I think this is the other thing that we're all getting a bit excited about. There are comparisons to be made between Watford and Leicester in terms of size of the club. I think he has made it very clear in his press conference this week that the target at the moment would be 40 points to stay up. He said maybe we can dare to dream about 41 points next year, but longer term it's an exciting appointment as well.
Yeah, I think and it's wise to talk about it like that. At the end of the season we need to remain in our Premier League status. We have to keep hold of, and that's the key, whether that's 40 points or 36 points or 33 points it could be. So that's the key component of why he's been brought into the club, and then on the back of that you can build, because you've got another transfer window to look forward to next season, hopefully in the Premier League. This transfer window will be a big one too.
Before we move on, we've touched on it very briefly, but there has been a number of Watford players that have been off representing their countries on international duty. Just to name a few: Messina, Louza, Troost-Ekong, Tufan, Cathcart, Bachmann, Sema, Sarr, Kutska. What's it like for these players that stay here, bearing in mind they have had the new coach as well to integrate with? For those players that are here, I suppose they'll benefit from having that extra time with Ranieri, won't they?
They will. I always found, having never played international football myself, I always found it was a little bit boring. You were just time filling till the rest of the team came back. So you knew you were going to work really hard, you'd get a couple of days off. I think having a new head coach comes in, brings that a little bit of excitement to the players that are still at the training ground. And obviously, because it's Claudio Ranieri, all of the people around the training ground are excited to see him and say hello to him. So I think that it just lifts that level of excitement for today's game.
I suppose as well, for those players that are here with a new coach, there's always a chance, an opportunity for players to state their place in an 11, right? So more motivation for them on the training ground as well.
Well, with every managerial change, the players that weren't playing will think, right, well, I need to get in this head coach's team. So that's normal throughout the country and the world. So yes, it opens up doors for some players, and also the players that were in the team will think, well, I need to work a little bit harder to make sure I get in this team, because I was in the last one. So it works both ways, and that can only be good for the club and for the team, essentially.
Well, having discussed him for the last few minutes here on Hive Live, it is now time to hear from the man himself, his new Watford head coach, Claudio Ranieri.
Claudio, welcome to Watford.
Thank you.
Firstly, how pleased are you to be here?
I'm very pleased. I'm very pleased to come back in Premier League, to come in Watford. The Pozzo family was a long time ago. We tried to link together in Udine, with Udinese, but never we had the time to join. But now is the right moment, I hope.
What makes Watford the right club at this point in your career then?
Oh, Watford is a very good club for me. I wanted to come back in England. Watford is an old club, and then I'm very, very pleased, very happy, and I want to do my best.
How familiar are you with the club? Obviously you've been in England with 3 clubs before. How familiar are you with Watford, and have you got some good memories of playing them and things like that?
Oh, of course, I have a good and bad memory when I played against Watford, but now is history. Now I look forward every time.
What can the fans sort of expect from your brand of football this season?
Oh, my football, I think in England everybody knows me from Chelsea or from Leicester. I want a team who try to score goals. We have a very good players in front, very fast. I want to close a little more the space and help the defense line.
And do you just quickly have a message to the Watford fans? Anything you'd like to say?
Oh, the fans, I can say, will work hard. We'll work hard. The campaign, it will be very, very difficult, but we are confident.
Claudio Ranieri there, Tommy. Very assured, very composed. I suppose you wouldn't expect anything less, though, with all his managerial experience. Though, saying that, even with all his decades of experience, do you reckon there are a few nerves in there?
I think there's always nerves for everybody. As a coach, I've gone into a club. As a player, I've gone into a club. Even for a head coach, I would imagine there's nerves going into a club. It's not easy to walk into a dressing room full of grown men that are obviously wondering how your appointment is going to affect their lives. So I think it is a scary place, and even at his age and experience, it still won't be an easy thing. But that experience gives you the tools to deal with it.
Saying all the right things there. I think there were lots of bits and pieces in there that are going to get Watford fans very excited. And actually, I think it was in his wider press conference, he digressed a little bit more detail about his history with the Pozzos. So there's a bit of romance there as well, isn't there, for us to enjoy? Yeah,
I think, and that's a relationship that has to be built between a head coach and the owners of a club. So if he's got a head start on that, that's ideal scenario. But I think having seen the media that he's done this week, it's his personality and how he deals with people. There's no question about his knowledge and about his coaching ability, but his personality seems to come across similar to the last head coach, and that's what rubs off on players and how you get the best from them.
Yeah, I say he's saying all the right things there for the fans, but also for the players. I think if they don't concede today, he said he'd take them all out for dinner.
That'd be motivation enough for me. That would. We actually had something similar with Graham Taylor. He used to take us for a pint and a pub lunch if we had a good result. But he used to make us walk all the way over Croxley Green. So there was always a double-edged sword with the gaffer.
Turning our attention then and focusing on today's opponents, Liverpool, whilst the dinner, I'm sure, will act as motivation, especially for those in that back line. It's not going to be an easy game, is it? It's a really tough one for us to get our teeth into under a new head coach.
Yeah, you know, whether it's after an international break and they perhaps have a weaker team than they might of other weeks, but it's Liverpool. You know, they're Premier League champions, very, very successful over the last couple of years. So it's one of those where you know it's going to be a really tough game. I just think the timing of Claudio coming in and the players coming back in and having worked with him for a day, I'd like to think that everybody that he picks today will be on their top game.
Have you had any experience where you've been, say, an away team visiting the opposition where they've had a new manager, and you really feel that bounce and that atmosphere, especially in a home stadium that you're visiting.
You always do, because I think if you know the team that you're playing next to struggling, you never want them to sack the manager before you play them, because there's always that little bounce. So every player thinks that way, and it'll be no different for the Liverpool players today. They'd have been happier without Ranieri in today than they would have previously. So they'll know they've got to be on their top game. And also there's that little bit of history with Watford and Liverpool that we've had some good results over the years.
Do you think that will be in the back of the players' heads, those that did play this time, last February now? I
would imagine it's very similar. You know my superstitions, so I was always like that. I always had good records of scoring against teams and good results against teams where you perhaps wouldn't think it. So yeah, I think it does. Still in the modern player's mind, they'll think any little, sports science talks about 1%, any little 1% that you can pick up, whether it's mentally or physically, then it's worth trying.
It's been a cracking start to the season for those teams at the top, battling it out for the title race. I mean, what have you made of Liverpool so far, and do you expect them to be there or thereabouts come the end of the season? Yeah,
I do. I think obviously since they won the Premier League, they've perhaps not been as exciting or as consistent perhaps, but I think when you've got arguably the best centre-back in the world in Van Dijk and Salah scoring goals, then they're a very, very dangerous team and a good team to watch. So
why have they not been as exciting in your opinion?
I don't think they've moved the ball as quick as they did when they won the league in that season. So yeah, I hope they have a really bad day today, obviously. But I'm looking forward to seeing them live.
Yeah. You mentioned Van Dijk there. They have actually conceded 5 goals in their last 2 games, though. So where are they to be got at in that back line? What do Watford need to do today?
I don't think they'll be relegated with that sort of form. But no, it shows they're human, and it shows that also the expectation on Salah to score the goals. They have players that score goals in other positions, but Salah is their go-to guy to get the goals, and if he doesn't get them, they've got to turn things around. And then Curtis Jones, you see there on the training ground, he's got into the team and done well, and then picked up an injury. So they have their own. Every team has a talisman. Salah's it, but they also have Van Dijk at the back, and Alisson's probably one of the best goalkeepers in the world, who we hear might not play today. So that's a bonus for us. And it's Watford versus Liverpool. Stranger things have happened.
Yeah, it's very true. I think Watford will take some comfort, though. Alisson in goal, no Fabinho either. So imagine that might give way to an opportunity for Naby Keita or Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain. But they're 2 quite significant misses, aren't they, for Liverpool?
Yeah, they are huge, but they're not bad players to come in, are they? So they'd
I'm doing my best here to look for the positives.
They'd probably get in any other Premier League team, those 2. So yeah, they've got a really strong squad, as you'd expect, because they're challenging for European trophies as well as domestic. So it's a strong squad. We've also got to take the game to them at home. We were fantastic here against Aston Villa, the first game of the season. Weathers are slightly different, but nevertheless for me it's one of those days where just driving in I thought, I'd really like to be playing today, because that wet turf, you can always get away with that first tackle.
Yes, I imagine there'll be a few players slip sliding out there today. I suppose for Watford fans as well, we'll be hopeful. It's not an easy afternoon for Cormac Gallagher in the Liverpool goal, which I think you go back a little bit.
Yeah, Coleman was coming over from Ireland to play in my under-16s at Aston Villa, so I know him well. Really nice kid from a really grounded family, and then obviously had the opportunity to join Liverpool as a 15-year-old lad, and what player, Irish player certainly wouldn't turn that down, and he's gone on to stay at the club and get in the team. Played probably half a dozen, if not a dozen, games in Europe and the Premier League. So. Young, but gaining a lot of experience. But he's certainly no Alisson.
No.
But we also know that when goalkeepers get a chance to play, they do everything they can to keep a clean sheet.
They do. I think, though, this is his first opportunity since February. As a striker, our strikers and our front men will be looking at this surely there'll be some extra incentive there, or perhaps just some extra confidence, really, knowing that you've got someone in goal that might be a little bit rusty, a little bit shaky because it's their first time in a while.
Well, he's essentially the reserve team goalkeeper, so you know that you've got more chance of scoring than you would have against the first team goalkeeper. Otherwise, he'd be in the team every week. So that's the way that I would approach it mentally. And also, because he's a young lad, you might try and like bully him a little bit in the box and at set pieces.
Yeah.
So it's one of those. It's always mind games start from getting off the bus. So you know that will start today from the very first whistle, and the players that are coming in that haven't played much football, you know, they'll be trying to get at them.
Well, we've heard from the new Watford head coach Claudio Ranieri. So whilst we're talking at Liverpool, we can hear from the Liverpool head coach now. Here is Jurgen Klopp.
Jurgen, I wanted to ask you about the fact that you spent most of your analysis looking at Claudio at Sampdoria rather than necessarily Watford this season. What have you learned from that analysis, and how much impact do you think he'll have been able to have in the 10 or so days he's had at Watford?
Look, when you look at the last game against Leeds, when they lost, obviously Watford had a good idea about the game. So we all know Leeds playing man marking, and Watford tried to build up with football, having a wide formation, stuff like this. That's good. That's actually what you have to do. The only problem is when you lose the ball, then the opponent has more space for a counter-attack, stuff like this. That's what Leeds used, and that's why they won. And I heard, of course, not everything what Claudio said last week, I guess, but some pieces, and he said we have to close the spaces, we have to be more compact, that's how it is, and we have to use the speed we have in our squad. So do we know exactly which system they play? No, Sampdoria 4-4-2 probably. Watford started in a 4-3-3 in the season, but then 4-2-3-1, stuff like this. So we don't know that exactly, but yeah, when you come, it's 6 years ago that I came new in the club during the season, but what I tried to do is giving some stability. So that's, of course, you have to you don't start with telling the players which about 20 different patterns offensively. You want to make them compact and defending well, and that's always the basis for winning a football game, and that's what we expect, obviously.
So Jurgen Klopp there, who's clearly done his homework by the sounds of things. He's such a great character, isn't he? I think it's safe to say he's got one of the best smiles in the Premier League. You a bit envious of those players that get to play for him?
Yeah, I think you always do with the top coaches, and I'd like to think he got some of his info from Hive Live. you never know. But yeah, he's a top coach. He's won the top trophies, so I think you have to. I like watching his press conferences. You know, very similar to Mourinho in the earlier days, and Ranieri this week. I think it's his personality shines through. Just looks strange without the glasses.
Yeah, I still get used to that a little bit as well, actually. He's a type of manager, though, that he just seems to be liked across the board by most Premier League fans, which is a bit unusual, isn't it?
It is, and I think I've watched Liverpool for many, many years. And my dad's still a Liverpool supporter, so he loves Jurgen Klopp because he thinks he's honest in his press conferences, which normally you get a stereotype, cold answer, we'll talk about football, nothing else. He goes off tangent, Jurgen Klopp, and I think that's why people like him so much. It's like you'd want to have a pint with him in the pub and let him pay, he can afford it.
You mentioned the word honesty there. He is honest, and he was very honest, I remember, after Watford beat Liverpool last February. So we are going to dive into the Hive Live archives now, give you a chance to relive that time that we last played host to today's opponents, Liverpool, here at Vicarage Road. The 29th of February 2020, I think, is a date that's immortalised now in the brains of all Watford fans and will live long in the memory. So do sit back, relax and enjoy as we watch the highlights of that game as Watford beat Liverpool.
Deulofeu leans away from Alexander-Arnold and gets a shot away. Was a foot or two wide, but a little sign of intent. Pereira. Ismaïla Sarr! Allison threw up a palm and turned it over. Van Dijk rolled through here for Andy Robertson. Down goes Foster. Decore. Sarr!
That is a massive, massive moment for Watford. That really is. They deserve to be in front.
Deeney, decent ball. Away from Van Dijk, away from Lovren. Ismaïla Sarr! Watford 2 to the good. Half an hour to play. Liverpool 18 wins in a row. 44 unbeaten in the Premier League. What have they got? What have they got? In goes Sarr. Alisson is committed. Sarr can't get a shot away. Oh my word, but Deeney does! And he is loving that!
That's a nice cool head and a lovely calm finish, that is. That is a really, really great goal. Because he's got to get everything right there. He's got a man on the line he's got to beat, but he doesn't want to blast it. That is just perfect. And Watford, they're in dreamland here.
Pivoting out of trouble and playing it for Ismaïla Sarr! There was his hat-trick moment.
Oh.
I think we heard there in the commentary they used the word dream world. It's like a fairy tale watching it back, especially to the soundtrack of Peter Drury there. It was an incredible night. Something we said here in the studio as we were watching those highlights back, it was weird to think it was still 0-0 at half time, but that second half, it was some performance, wasn't it, from Watford?
It was. I wasn't at the game, but I've seen the goals many times. It's just, I think, getting on the front foot, get the confidence of the first goal, and then you keep getting chances because Liverpool were trying to get back into the game. But that was actually the quickest I've seen Troy Deeney run to celebrate to the crowd there. So that was really nice to see, and confidence and finishing from Ismaïla. It just shows how dangerous he can be when he's on the ball.
Yeah.
We just need him to be on the ball a lot more.
Yeah, if we were going to be really harsh, we said here in the studio as well, perhaps it should have been 4, that opportunity at the end.
Always wanting more, Emma. Always.
But they were so composed, Watford, in that second half, and given the wider context of that match, where Watford were also trying to end this invincible record, yeah, it was fairy tale stuff, wasn't it? I don't really remember Liverpool ever really threatening Watford the other end too much either.
Well, certainly not on the highlights there, but
No.
And you'd expect when they're on such a good run as well of unbeaten games that you'd expect a little bit more of a fight from them. So I've no doubt that will have been mentioned at the training ground this week, if not in the last 24 hours with all the players back. It certainly would have hurt them to lose that record here at Vicarage Road, but it was a convincing victory and just shows that when we're on the front foot and confident, then we can really hurt teams.
It's funny how things work out as well, for that to have been our final home game before that extended break for COVID. I mean, of course, none of us wanted to be away for that long, but if you had to pick one game to bow out on, I mean, you couldn't really write it much better than that, could you?
It's not a bad way to go, is it? But then Liverpool went on that season to win the Premier League, so
yeah.
It was a good season for both.
Do you think what we did that day, you've alluded to it there, will actually be part of Jurgen Klopp's team talk today?
I think it'll be mentioned because I think professional pride is a very, very tough thing, and for them to lose their record in the way that they did, with the scoreline they did, would have hurt them, certainly hurt the manager, and it wouldn't surprise me if he's mentioned it. Like I say, I think just as a motivational tool, in perhaps a throwaway, there certainly wouldn't have been any analysis on it because it's two different teams completely, but just as a throwaway comment to put it in the back of players' minds, because that squad is pretty much still together as well. So I think that would definitely be mentioned.
Well, as we continue our countdown to kick-off, it is time to meet our virtual mascots for today's game. So, due to COVID protocols in the Premier League this season, we have had to be a little creative in ensuring that our mascots do still have a very memorable match day experience. So, they're all going to be in the stands at Vicarage Road this afternoon. And during the week, Watford goalkeeper Ben Foster sat down to answer some of the questions that were sent in by each of our mascots, which you can see now.
Who has the best goal celebration in the squad?
Who has the best
goal celebration in the squad. There can only be one winner of this. It has to be Emmanuel Dennis. He scored against Norwich a few weeks ago, and he did this unbelievable backflip thing, which was just ridiculous. His whole body, there's a picture of him, and his whole body was like 10 feet in the air.
I'm Marianne. What is your favourite food?
Hi Marianne, good question. I love it. My favourite food, I would probably say burgers. If I had to pick one thing, is burgers. You know what I do is when I'm at night, like I'll be in bed, I'll go on Instagram and I'll go on the Explore tab and I will pick like some sort of food being cooked, and it's normally a burger. And then I get lost down a rabbit hole of just looking at burgers and how they're cooked and how they're made.
What current Watford player would make the best manager in the future and why?
Hi Max, that's a really good question. I think the current Watford player that will go on to become either a coach or a manager will be Tom Cleverley. For sure, the guy lives and breathes football. You know, he's a natural leader in training, he's a natural leader on a match day for us when we play against any other Premier League team. So I will definitely say Tom Cleverley.
Who is the best player you've ever came up against?
Hi Owen, that's a very, very good question. The best player I have ever come up against would probably be Didier Drogba. It was about 12 or 13 years ago, but he was incredible, honestly. He had absolutely everything. He was strong, he was quick, he was good in the air, he could bully players.
Hi, I'm Cecilia. What team did you support when you were really young?
Hi Cecilia, the team that I supported most when I was young was Tottenham. It's funny though, when you get older and you become a footballer yourself, you kind of forget all of these loyalties to the team that you support. So I'd say that now I'm a little bit older, I probably just support the teams that I've played for, the likes of Birmingham or West Brom or Watford. They're the teams that I'll support, they're the teams my kids will support. But yeah, as a kid I was a Tottenham fan.
So now we all know Ben Foster goes to bed and Googles burgers on Instagram late at night. You're watching Married at First Sight though, aren't you, Tommy? That's what you tend to do.
Only because you got me into it. I definitely don't. I don't do Instagram, so I definitely don't search or Google, however Instagram works. Certainly not searching for burgers while I'm laid in bed.
It was great to see the mascots there, and I hope they all have a lovely day with us here at Vicarage Road. Hopefully it won't be long until we can have you face to face with the players once more, but for now we do have these virtual mascots. As a player, were you aware of the impact that you had and how special it was for youngsters to be meeting you, the first team players, and what that would mean? Yeah,
I think you always do, and I always remember my children went on to be mascots. Now, bear in mind, my children would meet the players at the training ground week in, week out. But come a match day, they were like starry little kids. It was like they knew all of the names and they knew their names. They were familiar. But on a match day, there's something about that dressing room feeling of being behind the scenes, and you can see it in the eyes of some of the young kids that go in there, and some of the older ones. We've had mascots in the past where the mascots have been older than the players, so there's always that side to it as well. It's dreams come true for supporters. So I'm not joking. That is actually true. But then nowadays I often get reminded by people that they'll say I was a mascot for Watford or for one of my different teams, and then now they'll be taller than me and 25 years old. I'm like, really? Yeah. I don't want to see a photograph.
And disappointment maybe as well. They got that mascot package and they had to hold hands with Tommy Mooney and walk out, hey? Right, looking ahead then, today it's all about Liverpool, but we're on the road once more next Saturday, up against Everton away. That'll be a cracker at Goodison Park, 3 o'clock kickoff. Tickets.watfordfc.com if you haven't got yours sorted already. Then we are back here at the home of the Hornets just in time for Halloween weekend, the 30th of October. 3 o'clock kickoff against Southampton. We'll also use this opportunity just to look ahead to Watford Women's next match against Crystal Palace. That is on Halloween the following day. That's Sunday the 31st, 2 o'clock kickoff at Vicarage Road, and the Golden Girls. They always appreciate your support, so do make sure that you head to the website and get your tickets for that one, tickets.watfordfc.com. We also mentioned at the top of the show that we have a brand new midweek Hive Live show for you to look forward to. So we're going to be taking you inside the club. We'll be looking at the women's team, as we mentioned there, touching on the academy as well, what's going on in the community trust, as well as keeping you up to speed with all things first team football. So you don't have to wait until Saturday to get your Tommy Mooney fix. You can get it midweek now as well. How exciting is that?
Yeah, it should be good. Different format, access all areas, something a little bit different for the fans. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yes, we all are. So keep an eye out for that. For day here on Hive Live, we're all about matchday commentary as Watford will be taking on Liverpool. So that will be from 12:15 this afternoon with Tommy Mooney and John Marks, the dream team as always. Final word on the game then. What kind of start do you think Watford need to make? Bearing in mind the Alisson-Calla situation, should we be going out the blocks quickly, or is it just all about protecting ourselves maybe in that first 20?
I think more so the latter. I think it'll be cagey, and then we'll try and get into the game and use the counter attack. So that's the way I think it'll be approached today.
I mean, the things we all do, I'm sure, to be inside that dressing room with Ranieri giving his first team talk, but how do you imagine that would look? Any inkling? Have you spoke to any of the players this week, or how are they getting on with him so far?
No, I haven't. They're obviously all travelling, so they've only had 24 hours with Ranieri. So, yeah, it'll be different. Maybe you're still young enough to be a mascot. You might get into the dressing room one of these days. You never know. I'm a little bit too old.
I mentioned some of the players there actually, and we should use this opportunity to reference our new signing. So it has been a busy couple of weeks since we were last in action. We've also mentioned the addition of a new head coach, but also the club have announced a new signing of defender Nicolas Nkoulou, which is on a deal until the end of the season. So he comes into the club with quite a bit of experience, 31 years old. And we can hear from him now. We'll get the thoughts of you, Tommy, in a moment. But here is Nicolas Nkoulou talking to Hive Live exclusively.
Welcome Nicolas, to Watford. How pleased are you to be here?
Merci, je suis très content d'être là. Je découvre un nouveau championnat, une nouvelle équipe, donc je suis plutôt très content d'être là.
Can you tell us how the move came about and when you first became aware of Watford's interest?
Alors il n'y a pas longtemps, j'ai eu un appel du directeur qui m'a fait part de l'intérêt pour moi de représenter cette merveilleuse équipe, dont je n'ai pas hésité vu le parcours de l'équipe, la constitution de l'équipe et surtout le nouveau staff qui est arrivé avec un entraîneur qui me donne confiance. Donc je suis plutôt motivé à bloc pour repartir de plus belle.
So having left Torino at the end of last season, how excited are you to be back in football, and what made Watford the right move for you at this stage in your career?
Si, penso que... Pardon, je pense que c'est l'équipe pour bien repartir, parce que vous savez ce que c'est la Première Ligue, je crois que c'est le meilleur championnat au monde. Donc pour moi, il n'y avait pas mieux. J'ai pris le temps de réfléchir et de faire le meilleur choix qu'il soit. Maintenant, quand et comment il vient, ma décision n'était pas forcément de moi.
Do you know anyone in the playing squad? Have you played with any of the players before or know them outside of football?
Oui, il y a quelques joueurs que j'ai vus parce que, justement, d'où je parlais de cette belle équipe, parce que j'ai eu à regarder quelques matchs. Il y a des joueurs que je connais, comme Moussa Sissoko, que j'ai connu dans le championnat français à l'époque quand on commençait. Et je pense qu'avec des joueurs comme ça, on pourra bien s'entendre pour faire de belles choses.
So Nkoulou speaking there, I mentioned before we went into that interview, Tommy does come to the club with quite a bit of experience at his age of 31. He's a Cameroon international, also played for Monaco, Marseille, Lyon and Torino. And I think it was that stint in Marseille, 2011 to 16, that did you overlap with him?
Yeah, I seen him play Marseille. We're playing Saint Etienne, and I had a loan player on loan at Saint Etienne, Jordan Veretout. So I went to the game. I remember his performance. He was very strong on the night in a really strong Marseille team. So yeah, he comes with a good pedigree, and you'd expect him to bring that extra experience and influence to what we presume will be a back four.
How would you describe him as a player?
Very energetic, passes it well through to the midfield, and organised him around him. Bear in mind he was only in his early 20s then, or mid 20s. So yeah, he looks like a good professional.
I suppose as well, if we're honest, it's an area we are a little bit light in at the moment with some of the injuries we're carrying. I think Cabasele, Sierralta, just to name a couple. Ranieri says that he knows him from Italy as well, knows he's a good player, so that always helps, doesn't it?
Yeah, he's had a good spell in Torino until the end of his contract, so he's played a lot of games, and I think you can always tell with the amount of games that they play in a season, and he's probably averaged 30 plus games a season in two very, very good leagues in Ligue 1 and Serie A. So yeah, he comes with a good pedigree, so I'm looking forward to seeing him get fit first and foremost, because he's obviously had a spell without a club, and then we'll hopefully see him here at Vicarage Road.
We mentioned Ranieri there. We've already heard from him a little bit so far in today's Hive Live. We've had the pre-match thoughts of the opposition manager Jurgen Klopp, so time to hear from our head coach Claudio Ranieri once more, as he tells us all about the challenge of taking on one of the best teams in Europe here at Vicarage Road this afternoon.
Looking at the game that you've got first up, a nice easy one for you against Liverpool. Is it the sort of match you've missed in the Premier League?
Look, I don't know if it's an easy match. It will be a very good match, and then, of course, there are a lot of things we have to improve, but we can see only after the match.
Your first challenge is Liverpool.
Yeah.
Jurgen Klopp is a manager who was very good to you when you went and saw him coach at Dortmund. Just tell us how that came about.
Look, I watched his training session a long time ago when he was in Borussia Dortmund, in La Manga, in Spain, and I watched 1 week of a training session. And he's a very good manager. He won everything. And I am happy to meet him Saturday.
And having watched how he works, is that going to be an advantage for you?
No, very little advantage. I watch how they play now.
So the managers then singing each other's praises pre-kick-off. Come 12:30 though, I'm not sure it'll be all smiles, Tommy. At the moment, I suppose, when you look at this situation with Watford, we've got a new manager, the players have all been away on paper. We've said it a few times today, Liverpool being one of the best teams in Europe at the moment. The odds are stacked against Watford. Is there a case to be made for the Hornets today to repeat what they did last February?
There always is. Football's like that. The game's never played on paper, it's played on grass, so you've always got a chance no matter who you're playing against, and they've proved that over the years. You know, they can pick up results against the teams where it's not expected, and I think that today could be one of those games. We have to start well, we have to be strong and structured at the back, and then on the counter-attack, if we can nick the first goal, that changes everybody's attitude and the atmosphere of the game, and we need this Vicarage Road bouncing. If you win in the game, this stadium bounces.
Yeah, this is it, and I think that's what should be the final word, really. We've spoken an awful lot about what they need to do on the pitch, but off the pitch, the fans really did play their part in this one, didn't they, last February? And we saw at Brentford, just before the international break, the fans there definitely played their part in clawing their way back into that game twice. So today, yeah, the fans are going to be key in this one.
Yeah, I think so. You've got to keep them on the edge of their seats, if not stood up and shouting and cheering a goal. So I think it's one of those where we need to have that opening day against Aston Villa. We keep coming back to it, but the atmosphere was as good as I've ever heard in Vicarage Road, if not better. So we need that on more occasions, and beating Liverpool at home certainly would provide that.
Yes, it certainly would. Fingers crossed for another really memorable afternoon here at Vicarage Road today. A reminder that live match commentary is free and available to all Watford fans via the club's official website. That'll be from 12:15 today with Tommy Mooney and John Marks, as always. Tommy, you'll be back on Thursday for that midweek show that we're already looking forward to. But before that, we're going to be back here recording Hive Live Extra a little bit later on, hopefully with a big 3 points to be talking about. And that will be the first place that you can see match highlights of today's game. So do keep an eye out across the club's social media channels for that a little bit later this afternoon. But the final thing to say is enjoy today's game from all of us here at Hive Live. It is goodbye.